interview in the New York Intelligencer. I've done all this, okay? And I've pieced together this information for presentation on the podcast for your listening pleasure and as an attempt to educate you on the topic that has slipped behind the curtain of the traditional media facade. Everybody wants to talk about impeachment. I want to talk about Tic Tac UFOs, okay? But then that's what I do. If you think Trump is God, or if you think Trump is Hitler, or the Dems and or the GOP suck or rule, listen to MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, some other traditional media source, because this podcast is about facts. And when I introduce opinions, they're opinions based in fact, not opinions presented as fact. That's the difference. That's the difference between what I do and what many others in the traditional media do, okay? Let me introduce the players in this Tic Tac UFO saga. Kevin Day. He was a Chief Petty Officer radar operator on the USS Princeton. He's a Top Gun, or was a Top Gun air intercept controller. Chad Underwood was a U.S. Navy pilot on the USS Nimitz who recorded the Tic Tac UFO video from the left wing of his FA-18 Super Hornet. So that video that you've seen, Chad Underwood was the one that recorded it, okay? David Fravor, he was a U.S. Navy commander who's also witnessed the Tic Tac UFO phenomena with his own eyes. And Joe Nickell. Joe Nickell is a skeptic who refutes Fravor and Underwood's story. Okay? Now the story itself, just a quick synopsis. On November 10th, 2004, Kevin Day, who was a radar operator on the USS Princeton, first reported seeing odd and slow-moving objects flying in groups of 5 or 10 off the coast of San Clemente Island, which is off the coast of San Diego. The elevation, around about 28,000 feet. The speed, about 138 miles an hour. Now, that's too high for birds, too slow for any conventional aircraft, and not traveling in any conventional flight pattern. Now, in a military report made public by KLAS-TV in Las Vegas, that's George Knapp's station, Day observed that the objects exhibited ballistic missile characteristics as they zoomed from 60,000 feet to 50 feet above the Pacific Ocean, without sonic booms, which was very odd. Now, just to note, radar operators spent about 2 weeks trying to determine that the objects in question were for real. In fact, they thought maybe there was something wrong with the radar on the USS Princeton. They went over it, they shut it down, they recalibrated to make sure that they weren't getting false positives or ghost tracks. The radar was operating correctly. Commander David Fravor, he was on the USS Nimitz, and he made visual contact with one of the objects during a flight training exercise. Now, an hour later, Underwood made his infrared recordings on a second flight. Fravor, who was Underwood's boss, told Underwood before he took off, hey, be on the lookout for something weird. I saw something odd. Underwood kept the lookout, and he saw it on his FLIR radar. FLIR is a forward-looking infrared radar, infrared camera, okay? And that footage appears to detect what Fravor had identified as a 40-foot-long object hovering between 15 and 24,000 feet, midair, and exhibiting no exhaust from conventional propulsion sources. In other words, exactly what Fravor had said. So what Fravor saw, Underwood confirmed via the FLIR. Underwood's video has no audio, which some people thought that was odd, but Fravor said that the audio just didn't make it to the copy taken from the storage data. In other words, when this video was filmed, downloaded the storage database on the ship, but the audio didn't make it over the transition. Now, Fravor has told ABC News and other sources that he didn't know what the Tic Tac was, okay? But he said it was really impressive, it was really fast, and he would have loved flying it. And by the way, that's what all the pilots who saw the video said. Wow, impressive, fast. I'd love to fly that thing. Many others spotted it as well, or recorded the objects as well. Many have come forward. Some have not. But the reports basically are very similar. They're very consistent. And those that have come forward, the reports basically mirror what Day, Underwood, and Fravor reported. Now remember, Day was from the USS Princeton, and he reported it. The Princeton then asked Fravor to check it out. Now Fravor was from the USS Nimitz. He confirmed Day's report, and Underwood, another Nimitz pilot, then filmed it. So one guy reported it, suggested somebody check it out. Two guys checked it out, and they confirmed what the original guy reported. Okay? Was this a conspiracy theory? I don't see how it could be. These guys were on different ships under different command. Okay? Now, while Fravor reports seeing the objects with his own eyes, Underwood said he never saw it with his own eyes. He only saw it on the FLIR, F-L-I-R. He was never close enough to see it with his own eyes. But both accounts jive together. Both Fravor and Underwood say the Tic Tacs made movements that defied the laws of physics and showed no conventional propulsion source. Now, the FLIR picks up 100%. 100% of the time, FLIR will pick up a propulsion source, a heat source. And none of this was on there. In other words, these things were moving with no conventional propulsion source. Some suggest that the rapid movements of the Tic Tac toward the end of the FLIR video was the result of Underwood's FA-18 banking to the right and dragging the camera along with it. Underwood said that could be, except for the fact that he wasn't banking during the video, and that Underwood never physically saw the Tic Tac either, just the video on his FLIR. So, again, Underwood's never saying, yeah, I saw it. He said he saw it on the video. But the fact that thing moved so fast, that was not Underwood banking. It was something else. Underwood said it couldn't have been birds because they were flying too high. Underwood said it couldn't be weather balloons because weather balloons don't have a propulsion source, so they could not have moved erratically. It couldn't be a weather event because a weather event, while sometimes shows up on this type of thing, it's not spotted by several different people from several different sources at several different times. In other words, 3 different people, radar, FLIR, eyeballs, all over a period of over an hour and a half. That isn't a weather event. In fact, the U.S. Navy called the sighting genuine. They did not trivialize it. They acknowledged the sighting as an object, unidentified. In other words, an unidentified flying object. Now, Underwood was contacted within 20 minutes of landing by someone he assumes was from NORAD. That's North American Aerospace Defense Command. He described exactly what he saw, and he was not debriefed. He basically told them what he saw, and they said, okay, thanks. That was it. Now, normally, let's say this was some type of a government test project, which happens, and you stumble upon it. Normally, what happens then is if they're doing some test project in the middle of the ocean, you stumble upon it and report it. You land. They take you, sit you down in a dark room. They tell you the basics about the project. They tell you what you saw, which may or may not be what you actually did see. And then they tell you not to discuss it. That never happened. He never went to the dark room. They never told him to keep his mouth shut. They never told him what he saw. They just asked him what he saw. So the translation, it was not a secret government project that they stumbled upon. So that's not what it was. Now, Underwood had top-level clearance, so they would not have, if there was something going on, they would have told him about it, at least given him the basics and told him to keep his mouth shut. Again, they didn't do that. They didn't tell him anything. Now, some say that it was what they call an ATIP project. And ATIP was that's that $22 million project. It was kind of it ran between 2007 and 2012, somewhere around there. That was the project that overlapped the ASWAP. That's AAWSAP. That's that dark energy manipulation of extra dimension project that they talk about on To the Stars Academy. Okay. Again, these are These were projects that were top secret at the time, experimental aircraft, experimental this and that, but they don't run them anymore, okay? They thought maybe it could have been something like that. But if so, why wasn't Underwood told about it? In other words, hey, what you saw was a special project. It was this. I know you said it was that. You need to report that it was this, and just keep your mouth shut. That's what would have happened if it was one of those projects, because that's the way things are done. It wasn't done that way. Day, Underwood, and Fravor have never speculated as to what they saw either, okay? Never did speculate. Well, I think maybe it was this, or maybe it was that. They've never said that. They've never said it was alien beings. They've never said it was an alien spacecraft. They just say we saw what we call a UFO, a object unidentified that was flying, okay? And basically, the Navy confirmed that term as well. Now enter character number 4, and that's Joe Nickell. He's the skeptic, okay? Joe Nickell is a PhD who runs a website called skepticalinquirer.org, okay? And he's a well-known skeptic. He's been doing this for many, many, many years. I think he's about 75 years old now and has been doing this for a long time. He's a sharp guy. He's a PhD, so he's a smart man, okay? And here's what I don't like about what Nickell did. And again, I'm going to report the facts. You decide. You decide what this is. If Nichols talking out of both sides of his mouth, or if Fravor, Underwood, and Day are talking out of both sides of their mouth. Okay. Nichols says this was Fravor's first military assignment as a pilot for the U.S. Navy with an FA-18 Super Hornet. Okay. I'd never heard that before, but I didn't hear it refuted as well. Nichols says that Fravor was teased by his shipmates when he landed for claiming to see a UFO. Fravor has admitted as much. But then he said, anytime anybody sees something like that, all the guys are going to tease you. They're just going to do it. That's the way it works aboard a ship. I've never been in the Navy, so I'm not a fighter pilot, so I don't know if that's a fact or not. But Fravor says that's just how things go. That's why nobody likes to talk about it, because they'll get teased, okay? Now, everyone seemed to know about this Tic Tac UFO when Fravor landed, when he returned to the ship. In fact, they were even playing Men in Black on the video screen in the mess hall. I heard Fravor on his interview confirm the same thing. So what Nichols says is this whole thing was just a joke they were playing on Fravor. Day, Underwood, set Fravor up just to be the brunt of the joke. Goofing on the boss, so to speak. Now, if this were the case, and let's say it's true, it's a theory, and actually it's a fairly logical theory. However, if this were true, why haven't Day and Underwood explained it as such? In fact, Underwood just came public this week. Now, this happened in November 2006. What is that? 13 years, over 13 years ago this happened. And Underwood just now is coming out to speak about it. If he still wanted to goof on his own boss, would he have come out and stuck with the same story all this time? And if so, how did he fake the video? You can fake, you could say, hey, we saw something, Commander going out there and check it out. And maybe he tried to think he saw something and was mistaken. They all laughed at him. But they have the radar from the Princeton. They have the video from the FLIR from Underwood's airplane. They have all that, okay? They went through 2 weeks of recalibrating the radar on the Princeton. Do you think that if they spent 2 weeks recalibrating the radar on the Princeton, that Day would have admitted that he was playing a joke? I don't think so. All this was a plot just to goof on a Navy commander. That's kind of what Nichols said. And that Fravor was just seeing stuff that he really didn't see. Okay? Well, I guess the U.S. Navy is in on the joke, too, because they reported the sighting as genuine. And again, what about the video?